Okay, audience, before we talk further about the quantitative classroom research in EFL settings, before that, please subscribe our channels, Kuliah Teknokrat, and don't forget to like the video that you can see and watch to improve your understanding about the study that you participate in Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia. Welcome to online learning of Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia. Now we will talk about quantitative classroom research in EFL setting. So, ladies and gentlemen, as a teacher, you will find many phenomena in the classrooms. You can see the students interact with others. You can also see their chat. You can also look at their response to the questions. You can also observe their motivations and attitudes. And at last, you can check and measure their learning achievement. In classroom research, we will deal with those variables. And in classroom research, those variables can be quantified and can be calculated so that we can get a clear picture of how a teacher can evaluate their teaching and learning process. This lecture will enable the participants and audience to make sense of classroom research, identify variables in EFL settings, identify classroom research problem in EFL settings, choose appropriate research designs, and analyze the research data appropriately. The lecture covers the following points: defining the classroom research, understanding research variables, quantitative research problems, and quantitative research designs. Before we talk further about the classroom research, let us take a look at the definitions of classroom research. According to Mackey and Gass 2016, classroom research is a formal study of teaching and learning. Classroom research often seeks to answer two important questions. The first, how well are the students learning? And the second, how effective are the teachers teaching? Before we talk further about the research designs, let's take a look at the settings in classroom research. In Indonesian settings, English is considered as a foreign language. It is the conditions in which English is not used as a dominant language. So English is taught to non-native speakers or to speakers of other languages. In this case, our students can be called EFL students, and the teachers can be called as an EFL teacher. The next point of this lecture is that we need to understand the research variables in classroom research settings. When you can observe the classroom settings, you can also see several points, several aspects as follows. You can observe the students' participations, you can measure the students' skills, you can observe the students' attitude and motivations, self-esteem, proficiency, media, their learning anxiety, self-regulations, and also the students' learning strategies. So these variables are often investigated in classroom setting context. There are two types of variables in this case. The first is independent variables, and the second is dependent variables. When we look at the independent variables, it is the variables that affect the dependent variables. For example, the learning method or the teaching method that the teacher uses. The learning method can affect the skills of the students, can also affect the learning achievements, as well as the students' motivations. Media. The use of media in language teaching is very important. So media can also contributive to the improvement of students' skills, motivations, self-esteem, self-regulations, and etc. So independent variable here is the variables that will affect the dependent variables. On the other hand, dependent variables. Dependent variables are the variables that are affected by independent variables. For example, the students' language skills, such as listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. The students' attitude, the students' motivations, students' self-esteem, and the students' affective characteristics. So what should we do with these variables? In quantitative research, affected or dependent variable should be observable and also measurable. They have to be quantified into numbers. The numbers in this case can be in the form of numerical data or categorical data. After we have discussed the definitions and the variables in quantitative classroom research, let's discuss the quantitative research problems. Quantitative research problems is usually expressed in the form of questions. For example, is there any effect of X towards Y? Second, can X improve significantly Y? And the last one, is there any relationship between X and Y? X and Y here are the variables that are investigated in this classroom research. Let's discuss one by one each questions that is commonly used or investigated in classroom research. The first, is there any effect of X towards Y? In this case, we can assume that X is independent variables and Y is dependent variables. The real questions can be like this. Is there any effect of Google Classrooms towards students' reading skill in a blended learning class? We can identify that Google Classroom here is independent variable and students' reading skill is dependent variable. And we can also note here there is a context in a blended learning class. As we know that blended learning class is the situation in which we use two modes of instructions, online and offline. So in this case, the researchers might want to investigate the effect of Google Classroom towards the students' reading skills in a blended learning situations. So it is the examples of the first problem. The second problem can be expressed in different way. For example, can X improve significantly. Why? So it is expressed in different questions but have similar meaning. The meaning is that each possible question here, each two question here simulates a causal effect relations. For the examples, question number 2, we can write like this. Can group work improve significantly student speaking skill? Group work here is an independent variable, and student speaking skill is a dependent variable. Let's take a look at the third sample of problem. The question is there any relationship between X and Y? So you can try to formulate this question. Is there any relationship between learning motivations and students' writing ability? So in this type of questions, it is commonly related to correlational situations, correlational study, in which we would like to investigate whether there is any relations between motivations and students' writing ability. So, ladies and gentlemen, audience and viewers, based on these formulated questions, we can see that there are possible of research designs that we can employ in this research. The possible designs are first, experimental designs, second, time series designs, and the third, ex post facto designs. This was written according to Hatch and Farhadi 1982, in Setiadi 2018, and Mackey and Gas 2021. Okay, before we close these lectures, I would like to review a little bit what we have learned so far. The first, we have learned about the definition of classroom research. Pay attention that classroom research happens in classroom settings. It will investigate how well the students learn and how good the teachers teach. Once again, classroom research is a formal study of teaching and learning. Classroom research often seeks to answer two questions as follows. How well are the students learning, and how effective are the teachers teaching? And then we have discussed so far about the context of EFL, or English as a foreign language. So as a researcher, we should really understand that this is the context in which English is taught as a foreign language, and it is not used as a dominant language. We also have discussed certain variables in classroom research, independent variables, and also dependent variables. And at last, we have talked about possible problems in classroom research. So, these are the discussions that we have so far. We will continue our next discussions to further discuss about the research designs in classroom research and how to analyze the research data in classroom research. So, stay tuned in online learning of Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia. please subscribe Kuliah Teknokrat YouTube channel and don't forget to like our videos. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.